saw the sun go down. Again.
Hi everyone. Oh, I see we have a little delay on the sound. Let me quickly figure out why this is happening. I'll figure this out real quick because I was logged in into YouTube. That's why there's a bit of a delay happening here. All right, things should be good. But there are still like audio problems. You can put it in the chat if you don't hear us talking, because we have a very special guest today. We have Mark Turko from the US. Probably know who I am because we're talking on my YouTube channel. I'm Antony from bestbluesguitarlessonsonline.com. So everyone who tuned in from all over the world on YouTube or Facebook, we're also streaming live through Facebook. So without further ado, I want to introduce Mark. It's a very special guest because I met him in the US while I was there traveling to do masterclasses myself. He was there doing his thing. And I have to say, I was very impressed by the very meticulous way that Mark was able to break down really complex things like playing behind the beat. And I haven't heard anyone talk the way he does about these essential, very essential rhythm aspects. And that's why I invited them today. So I'm very excited to have him here live with us on the stream. Also, if you're tuning in from all over the world, just put in the chat where you're from. So we have Mark from the US. How are you, Mark?
Fantastic. How you doing, Anthony?
All right. I'm doing great as well. Thanks. All right. So are you excited to drop your geniality on us? Because like I said, I was very impressed by the way you were able to break down these concepts, these rhythm concepts. And that's also why you have like your rhythm guitar website. And we have some special resources for the people who stay with us till the end of the live stream. We will be talking about these things, but I'll let you answer, like, how did you come up with the ways in which to explain these essential concepts I will be talking about these concepts in a second. But
Well, it's playing behind the beats a very elusive subject, and I knew how to do it for a long time, but I didn't quite understand myself the exact science of it. And even speaking with very competent professional drummers and stuff like that, seems like everybody who could do it knew how to do it, but I really had a hard time explaining it. So I figured out a way to explain how it exactly happens. And as you saw at my presentation, I had some visuals to go along with it. I'll verbally describe to the best of my ability what those visuals are. But basically what happens is anytime you have any type of rhythm, okay, and you're playing in time, typically the beat occurs on the one of the measure or any subdivision thereafter. It doesn't matter. But typically there's some constant pulse going on that has a tempo. So that's the first thing that needs to be established, is that constant pulse needs to exist the whole entire time for playing behind the beat. Because if it doesn't exist, then you're just playing in a different tempo. Basically what it is. So what needs to happen is there needs to be an established tempo and something. Typically, usually it's some function of the drums is playing exactly on the beat when it's supposed to be. And then once you have that established, any instrument, whether it be guitar, bass, or any part of the drum set outside of whatever is keeping the established tempo, can actually play off time. But the catch is that it needs to consistently play out of time, and for the same amount of being offset of playing in time, that needs to be consistent also. Otherwise, it just sounds like a mistake. So it's the consistency of playing out of time with the established tempo that actually makes it sound like it's behind the beat.
Right.
Do you understand that?
Yeah, and I remember your presentation when you had laid it out visually. It was like a refresher on things you already know, but what I found that as musicians, it's sometimes easy to forget how complex some of these things are, because like if you basically what you just told, people that communicate on a musician level basically tell each other, well, I'm playing behind the beat and the song is played like really tightly. But for beginners, it's sometimes, and even people playing for years, it's sometimes hard to get a grasp on how to get started practicing all this stuff, because you might be able to hear it as a musician, but that doesn't mean that like when you're just starting out, that you even hear when it's played behind the beat or on the beat and so on.
Yeah, that's actually really difficult. So the best way to understand how it exists is, first you need to be able to know how to play on the beat. So if you're looking to do it yourself, you need to learn how to play on the beat. And when I mean on the beat, I mean tight. So the way in which I tell my students to do this is that if you were just to take one note and play along with a metronome, if you have the volume of the metronome and the volume of your guitar set at just the right levels, that when you play perfectly in time, the click disappears, because the volume of your guitar is just at the right amount to cancel out the click sound. So it takes a little bit of experimenting to set those levels. But if you do play exactly on the click and your volume's just at the right volume, the click will disappear. And that's actually what you want. So before you even learn how to play behind the beat, you need to play on the beat, but you need to really know how to play on the beat perfectly. So if you can consistently make that click disappear while it's playing, then you know that you're playing on the beat. At that point, then you can take the next step and try to start playing behind the beat or ahead of the beat or wherever you want on the beat. It doesn't matter. But you need to be able to have that control. So tight is super tight. Most people think they could play tight. They can't play as tight as they think they can. And it's it's a pretty sobering experience also. If you've never worked with the metronome a lot playing rhythm, it can be kind of a sobering experience where you realize that you're not as good as you thought you were. But that's actually good news. It's actually good news because there's room for improvement, and at least you know what you have to work on instead of being oblivious.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing about the metronome, that one of the more sober exercises that I prescribe to some students of mine is to just play the metronome and then clap your hands until it cancels out the beat, which is equal like what you said with the guitar, but it's sometimes good. I found to clap out rhythms, because if you can clap it, you most of the time can play it if you have the technical aspect of the riff or the chord progression under your fingers. Then if you can't clap it, it works also the other way around. If you can't clap it, you probably can't play it in time, because you don't understand the rhythm, you can't feel the rhythm. And I think you hit the nail on the head with this. Like, if you first feel where the beat is by just working with the metronome, that's a great exercise for people starting out. So if there's anyone live with us who has questions for Mark about the topic of how to play behind the beat, anyone wants to share experiences or just have other topic questions, but on the topic of rhythm guitar, feel free to let us know what you want to ask Mark, and then later on during the live stream we can come back to the questions, and I will sort out the most cool questions that we can ask Mark on this topic. So Mark, we were talking about working with a metronome. What I found out that for myself and also a lot of students, a metronome can be quite daunting, not only because it's like difficult to do in the beginning, but also because it's kind of a stale song to listen to. So what I've been working with some students, I've been telling them to play with the drum track. Do you also think it's great to play with some form of drums? Do you tell your students this? Do you advise them on this, or do you say, well, work with the metronome first, then go to the drum track, or what is the order you like to take them through?
Typically, if it's a newer student, I like them to work with a metronome a lot, so they really, really know there are no other distractions, no other drums. It doesn't have to be long, but once you know you're locked in with the metronome, you know you're locked in. But then that gets really boring. So the way to alleviate the boredom is, once you have internalized what the rhythm is supposed to be by playing it and hearing it along with the click, then I advise them to rapidly move to playing with drum tracks, because that alleviates the boredom or monotony. And you start having fun. It starts sounding like more like real music. It's not like this very clinical thing. So I advise all of my students to start off with the metronome, and then you could play with the drum beat as well. And if for some reason something isn't working out and you jump to the drum machine too fast, you could always go back to the metronome, tighten it back up, and then you go over to the drum machine or drum beat or drum track, whatever you happen to have. And it actually, you could hear the difference. If for some reason you weren't totally locked in, and then you went back to the drum machine, tightened it up, and then went back to the drum track, you could hear the difference. You could feel the difference. So, playing in time is just as much of a feeling as a thing that you just hear. So once you're able to play locked in on the beat, it feels a certain way. So it's easier actually to recreate that feeling than it is to listen and concentrate so hard. That's what all the pros do. They just know what it feels like to be on the beat. They know what it feels like to be behind the beat. They know what it feels like to be playing ahead of the beat. So it's easier just to recreate the feeling instead of all of the mental concentration that goes into trying to do those three other things.
Right. And I think the feeling part is an important, like internalizing the rhythm. And it comes also down, I think, to learn to think in rhythms. Like people that are trying to become a more experienced guitarist and who want to do it like in a way where they're building a foundation versus just watching like thousands of licks and then trying to play lick one and lick two, but they're trying to build this foundation where they're having a trained ear. But also an important foundational aspect that I found is the rhythm part and internalizing rhythms, like just what I was telling the other moment, clapping the rhythms out that you want to play. Like if you want to learn a riff of your favorite band, just clap the rhythm first, so you have this layer down the rhythm part. And I find myself a lot, like even in the restroom, just tapping my legs all of the time, like I think in rhythms. And I found like this is an aspect that is tied closely to ear training, because the goal of ear training is to be able to hear something before we play it on the guitar and to visualize notes on the fretboard, and we hear the sounds coming out. So when we improvise, then it becomes really easy to know where to go to. And then instead of aiming fishing for notes and aiming for random notes, it becomes something that we can rely on. We know already before we play it how it will sound. I think it's the same for rhythm. Once we internalize to rhythm, we're in control of what is going to come out of our guitars or instruments when we are then going to play. So, but yeah, first internalizing. Cool. Thanks, Mark, for this.
Yeah, the internalization thing is very important. So if I have some of my students and they're working on, just say, a basic type of rhythm pattern, but it's not basic for them. It's new for them, but it's a simple foundational type of pattern that you want to do. So if it's like down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, something that you typically would play like on an acoustic guitar, even just starting off on an electric guitar, I make them say it in time. And I say, if you could say it, you could play it. But it's just a different form of internalization. It's just because they're vocally making themselves do the rhythm. So any type of internalization, whether you're clapping, you're tapping on your leg, you're using your voice, I think all of those methods are very, very, very effective. So I go with the if you could say it, you could play it thing at my school where I teach, because that seems to work really well too.
Right.
I got to try the clapping thing more often though.
Clapping works for riffs, like complex riffs. If you can clap it, you can, most of the time, if you have the technique down, then play it. And then you have, it comes down also to isolation. And a lot of great teachers, like for instance, in the piano world, talk about isolation, like learning practicing things with the left hand, and then practicing things with the right hand, and then putting them together on the piano. But first, isolating both hands. I think for the guitar, it's the same thing. And it's not only isolating both hands on a technical level that's important, that's a whole other topic, but I think isolating just the rhythm part before you play the riff is something that is overlooked. And I think on as a group of guitar players, we tend to go for things that sound flashy, like guitar solos, and these are all important things. We need to learn everything, to master an instrument. But I find that a lot of time guitarists are the first people to kind of skip this foundational level of, learning how to play like basic rhythm parts of a song, instead of just going straight into the solos. And do you have any thoughts on this? As this just like something, because like we like to play guitar solos, and a lot of people, watch YouTube clips where there is a lot of stuff on soloing, but like I think the foundational levels like technique, in my opinion, rhythm guitar, ear training, are kind of only for the people who are really into the instrument and who want to really excel. But even people that want to become good, they sort of forget about like the ear training, rhythm part, and all of this important stuff.
Yeah, it is forgotten. It is overlooked. And what most people don't realize is that their favorite guitar players are awesome rhythm guitar players too. It's not a glamorous thing to work on. Nobody's all over the internet saying what an awesome rhythm guitar player this guy is or that guy is, but whoever those guys are, they are awesome. That's why they are as good as they are, because if you're really good at rhythm, also that'll also spill over into your phrasing as a lead guitar player too. So knowing rhythm really well doesn't only apply to rhythm guitar. It's rhythms of your phrasing, rhythm of your licks. I mean, once you understand the nuances of rhythm, it can be easily applied to single note stuff, not meaning like a riff either. It doesn't have to be a riff. It could be part of your guitar solo. It overall makes you a better guitar player. So, everybody loves their favorite guy, and I'll almost guarantee that their favorite guy is a really good rhythm guitar player too. Now, something in my own personal experience, I know that you don't have to be the best lead guitar player in the world to work, to like as a musician. You could be just an average guy who can belt out some mediocre solos, but if you're a super solid rhythm player, most people want to play with you. Because don't forget, I mean, 98% of your song is rhythm anyways. It's only 2% or even 1% might be a guitar solo in typical music, unless it's a big long jam or an extended solo. But if you're playing 3 to 4 minute songs, you're not getting a lot of time to do a solo. It's a lot of time to play rhythm, though. You know what I mean? And the drummer and the bass player and everybody who else is in whatever musical group you're playing in, they want you to be really good at rhythm. Because if you're not, it's not a fun time for all the other players, So if you become proficient at being a good, solid, even just solid, basic rhythm guitar player and playing on the beat and things like that and being able to lock in. Now, to come back to our original topic that we were talking about was playing behind the beat. Once you become that solid player and you could play with other people and you could make your click disappear and everything, it won't take as much work to understand how to play behind the beat once you already can lock into the beat. So let's just say it takes, a long time to lock yourself in, and so you become a good rhythm player. All right. So obviously the more time you spend, the quicker it'll happen, but meaning like long time calendar wise. But if you were to put an extra effort in and spend a lot of time playing rhythm, once you have it, it's like this invisible line in the sand. Once you cross over it, you can never undo that at all. So you're always going to have that. And then with very little more effort, then you can start being able to play behind the beat easily. Things like that.
Right. It's funny that you mentioned the point about basic rhythm, even basic rhythm parts, because I was, while traveling this summer through France with the wife and kids, I had this book, the biography of Dave Grohl, the drummer from the drummer from Nirvana, guitarist, songwriter from Foo Fighters, and he was telling about like his first experience as a drummer with his first band. I forgot the name, like in the punk scene of Washington D.C. He was touring all over the States with them for years, and then basically the bass player took him aside after playing years with each other, and he was playing like a simple R&B groove, like for an entire hour, and he told Dave Grohl to drum to it. And then whenever that Dave Grohl made like a fill on his drum, he was no fills. So, and Dave Grohl was basically writing in the book that this was the most important drum lesson he ever got, because he learned to drum on a basic level. And like I was watching a video that one of my students referred to me to from a really famous jazz guy nowadays, and the drummer played really basic stuff, but it sounded so nice. And it comes back to what Miles Davis always talked about, like it's not about the notes you play, it's about the notes you don't play. And a lot of times, even when playing rhythm, we try to go for chord phrases and this kind of Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff, and this is really cool as well. But people tend to forget that, you know, people like Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix, so on, they are all great rhythm players as well. And they are capable of delivering a really basic rhythm part so that other people can, you know, have their voice or their guitar parts shining through, because that's basically like what you want to be able to do as a side guy. You know, you want to be able to form a rhythm that other people can hang on to, a singer or other lead guitar player.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, I totally agree. Yep. The foundational thing is so important, you know, and then it's easy actually to make it fancier after that.
Right.
It's actually really, it's easy to make it more complicated once you have the simple thing or the foundational thing solid. It's not hard to make it more complicated, but if you try to go in for something more complicated right away, it's going to seem difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think just like playing rhythm parts, simple rhythm parts for like a couple of minutes in a row is an important aspect of becoming a better guitar player.
Yeah. Yes. If you, I mean, if you were to just put a drum track on and try to nail a rhythm perfectly for 1 minute straight, that's a long time. That's a long time, you know, to mechanically be able to execute it perfectly for a minute. A minute doesn't sound like a long time. It is a long time to play something as perfectly as humanly possible. Yeah. You do 2 minutes, then you do 3 minutes, you know? Yeah. It's not as easy as it sounds, you know?
Right. And people tend to skip it. Like not everyone, like the people who become really good don't skip this thing. But even then, like in the beginning, most people aren't aware of like how utterly complex it can be to do this, because it should be practiced. And like people tend to, when practicing like basic songs, there I'll get you an example here. Like for instance, like minor blues stuff. And just zoom out here so you can see it, like minor blues stuff like this. Oh, then just practicing this kind of stuff all of the time, like, and trying to go for this 2 and 4 where I'm accenting, like the drummer hits the snare drum on those beats. It's like 1 and then just trying to make this tighter is a really great practice. Just doing this minutes like at a time, and you can of course get 12 bar in and go to other chords to make it a bit more applicable to playing songs. It's like the trill is gone from B.B. King. You can play this chord scheme and then just go for a couple of minutes in a row, just making it tighter and tighter, just to give people sort of a thing that I am working on myself all of the time, even after like 22 years of playing. So this is kind of stuff I play every day just to get it more tighter and in sync and more natural flowing, part of your internal clock, like you were talking about internalizing. So great points, Mark. Thank you for this and great conversation. And also thanks for everyone who've been commenting in the chat. So when we were talking about the overlooked aspect, someone on the chat talked about Eddie Van Halen, that he's a great rhythm player, but who talks about his rhythm? And I think it's a great point to...
Everybody should be talking about his rhythm. Everybody should be talking about his rhythm, because he is a special case in the sense that he plays a lot of swing in his rhythms, which most guitar players don't do. And that maybe is a whole nother topic of discussion or rabbit hole that could be talked about, but he swings his rhythms. Okay. So he's not typical at all. So he's not playing everything straight all the time. I mean, there's songs where he does, but he could swing his rhythms as well. And so that's complex, but he couldn't swing his rhythms if he didn't know how to play tight on the beat to begin with, So, and he doesn't do so much as playing behind the beat as swinging. But again, it's the foundational thing, being locked in, that's really where it comes down to being very important. So, but like I said before, once you have that foundational thing, it's actually not that hard to deviate from there, So getting back to the playing behind the beat thing. So imagine if this is the beat right here. This is where we're landing. We have the pulse of the song happening. So I don't know how this is going to work out, but if you're going to play behind the beat, you want to actually play right after the beat happens. So if it were too long, it would sound kind of like a flam. If it's less than that, then that's playing behind the beat. Just a millisecond right after it happens, you want to come in late. You actually want to come in late, but it's late on purpose, and it's so fractional that it doesn't sound late, but you have to consistently do it every time, at least during that section of music. So technically playing behind the beat means you're coming in late. The beat occurs, and then you happen. So that's why it's called behind the beat. The beat already happened, and then you're right behind it. So you're behind the beat. So technically it means that you're playing late. If you were to do it the other way around, you'd be playing ahead of the beat, meaning that you would play before the beat happened. Okay? So as far as that stuff goes, like we had said, you have to consistently play the same amount of minuscule lateness consistently. Otherwise, it just sounds like you're not tight. But if you were to consistently play exactly after when the beat occurs, that's when you start getting the feeling of playing behind the beat, you know?
And this comes back down to the importance of doing it minutes in a row, because if you just play it like many people after 20 seconds of playing like a simple riff or simple chord like to a beat, they go, yeah, I got this. Where's the new flashy lick? But you know, you have to do it a long time, a couple of minutes in a row to get good at it.
Yeah, the way that I actually learned how to play is I actually learned how to play behind the beat because I was playing with the drummer that knew how to play behind the beat. So I was able to lock in to his snare drum because his snare was playing behind the beat. The hi-hat was right on the beat. I don't know what the kick drum was doing, but the snare was a little lazy. It was a little behind the beat. And I was able to lock into that. And then I saw, oh my gosh, this is so different. This is different than just like a machine. Because I've played with good drummers before. But when the drummer was able to play behind the beat, behind his own hi-hat, he was playing his snare behind the beat. I was able to focus on that one element and just lock in with the snare drum. So for anybody who's looking to play behind the beat, if you happen to know a good drummer who can play behind the beat, I suggest going to jam, because when you're doing that, you could focus on just one element of that drum set, of that beat. And if you really focus in on that and they're playing behind the beat correctly, then you'll be able to understand that it's actually starts becoming a feeling. It's not so much that you're thinking about playing just slightly late. And so we get back to that feeling thing, but it's not that hard to lock into one drum. But of course, you definitely need to have somebody who's doing it correctly.
Right. Great.
Yep.
So talking about this feeling, we have Tom Hess tuned into the live stream. So thanks for being for tuning in, Tom Hess. And he had a question about maybe something we can talk about, not really question, like suggestion, that we can talk about the sound, the feeling that gets created when the band is on the beat, but the vocals and vocal harmonies are behind the beat.
Well, to me, it gives a sense of the song not being rushed at all. You know, it feels to me like it's a more natural kind of thing. It conveys their emotion of their vocals in a better way, because it's not quite like starting your vocal line on the and or the two of the measure or something, but you kind of let the music do its thing first, and then the vocal will have a little bit more impact. It's not quite the same as starting on the two, but also not so much that, though. I mean, although I think that contributes to it, but I believe that it actually gives a certain weight to the vocals. I'm not quite sure how to explain it. I think it kind of like, it makes you pay attention more to the vocals, you know, because it's not locked in right in with the music. So it's kind of stands apart. So it's sort of, it's almost your, I think it makes the listener hear the vocals better sitting in the mix, you know?
Right. Anytime I hear like somebody, a singer, like singing behind the beat, I instantly go like professional. Like it stands apart. Like, and it might not always be the case that these people who are singing behind the beat are professionals, but it comes across very musically mature if you're able to do it as a singer. And I think a lot of great singers do it just for the reason because it creates more tension and dynamics in the music, and especially like in ballad stuff. Like we have this show here, we probably have the same show in the US, The Voice, where people like amateur singers go on the stage, and a lot of the time they are able to sing really good, like on pitch technically. And I'm not a singer myself, but I can sense if I watch the show that they do everything pretty good, like correctly, but most of the time they're lacking like little details that is present in the original song, or the when you listen to professional singers, like great singers. And one of the most important aspects is that they kind of rushing. They're kind of like these singers on The Voice. A lot of times are like a bit in front of the beat, like they're kind of rushing, while a lot of singers in the original songs or like professional singers are kind of dragging. They're kind of behind the beat.
Yeah, like Tom Hess just came in on the comments. He said it makes it sound lazy, but in a cool way, which is absolutely true. And that was actually what I was looking for. It does sound lazy, but at least to me, it makes me pay attention to the vocals more. So it's like there's something different going on here. It's not just all lining up with the band. And I think that's what you were talking about the TV show, because even if you're not rushing it, even if you're not ahead, if you're just on the beat all the time, it starts sounding very clinical. And you're used to the professionals that you hear not sounding so clinical about their vocals. And so that laziness, that singing a little bit behind the beat, it brings attention to the vocals, but it also creates this really cool human thing that we're very used to hearing from professional vocalists. It's not this clinical, perfect thing that happens. It sounds actually more natural and organic. And really good vocalists can either stay behind the whole time, or they can pick and choose parts where they want to sing as well. Right. As well as the musicians playing in the bands as well, you know?
Yeah, and I think the words dragging and lazy really describe playing behind the beat well. Yes. And also the feeling, like I always tell my students the story when I was traveling in the US to Palm Springs, which has Josh Homme, his studio, where from Queens of Stone Age, and they're playing stoner rock. So it's always kind of this dragging feel, because it's so enormously humid there. It's so warm. Like when we were traveling, it was like, I don't know about Fahrenheit, but how it translates, but it was like 40 degrees Celsius at least, like maybe pushing 45. So we couldn't do anything but, stay at the pool and the pool or in the shades. So that's when you get a feel of how this whole stoner rock scene must have evolved, because they can play really technical metal, like thrash metal on the beat, because it's just too warm to do it. After a few songs, they would, have to take a breath. So, and I always think to myself, and that's also one of the ways in which I explain it to students playing behind the beat, is like, just think you're on the porch and you're playing a little blues riff, but you don't have anywhere to go, because like there's nothing to do. Like, and if we look at where the blues, for example, originated from, like really poor people, and then it evolved to where it is today. But in the beginning, the musicians, they didn't have anything to rush about. They were just, like, and I will always tell my students to, try to, like, as an actor, live yourself like in the humid conditions of the stoner rock in Palm Springs, or just sitting on the porch playing a blues riff, but you don't have anything to rush for. And like, this might bring another topic of, and we have to wrap this up, but I think like in the West, people are always rushed. So it's great if you want to play behind the beat, if you want to learn it, to just think like of a sort of mindfulness approach for yourself to bring back like the your heart rate and bring back your nerves so you can play like this lazy feel, this dragging feel, this stoner rock thing where it's just too hot to play anything rush or you don't have to go anywhere. So it's just a lazy feel. So I think um, fishing for words to describe this feeling is an important part of getting people into how to do it for themselves.
Yeah, I have this the lazy thing. That's a good word. Um, Feeling like you're falling backwards, like you're being pulled back a little bit, or if you were like leaning back the whole time, or even if the sensation of falling back, but it's a continual sensation. There's no, you never ever quite land. You know what I mean? So especially when, I think if everybody is meaning like most of the ensemble, whoever it is, if everybody's playing behind the beat, that's where the term playing in the pocket comes from, because everybody's kind of playing behind the beat, except for one fixed thing that's on the beat. Okay, so that would be a whole ensemble. So to me, that's what playing in the pocket is when the whole ensemble's playing behind the beat. But when you have just like the drums and the bass playing on the beat, and then something like the guitar is being lazy and playing behind the beat, that's when you get that sense of sort of like laziness, tension, kind of like constant feeling of leaning back, because you have these two opposing forces that are consistently fighting for their spot. And it's always, if everybody's doing their job correctly, you're going to create that sort of feeling or that tension or that laziness or the feeling of being pulled back, however you want to describe that feeling. But it is definitely a feeling. But it's different than when everybody's playing behind the beat, as opposed to just having one or two instruments out of a whole ensemble playing behind the beat. It's a different thing. It's a whole different thing.
Right. Thanks a lot, Mark. And we have to wrap this up. Thanks for everyone who's here with us online. And as promised, we have some really great resources. So, Mark, can you talk us through what is going on here at the screen? Because at your site, there's a free downloadable guide, I think. Maybe you can say something about this.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can go to my website. So if you've ever had the experience of listening to music and you see or you hear, your favorite player and he's playing a few quick little single notes in between chord changes, and you just are, how do you do that? What is that all about? Is that really rhythm playing because he's playing single notes? Yes, that is still rhythm guitar playing. So this beginner's guide will show you in great detail with examples of how you can simply add single note phrases in between your chord changes. And most pro players do it, and it's actually not as hard as you think it would be. So it's a free download, it's a free source. It's actually really easy. It's not hard at all.
Great, Mark. So it's the link below here, rhythmguitarlessons.net/pro. Thanks for sharing this, Mike. And I also have a resource. I think everyone online probably knows my site already. It's bestbluesguitarlessonsonline.com. If you go to /bluesrhythmguitar, if you haven't downloaded this ebook, it's packed with examples of how to play rhythms and riffs and the blues and how to mix them all together. So it's basically, if you're into the blues, you have to get this downloadable ebook if you haven't already. And thanks again, Mark. Thanks for everyone who was here with us. And we'll do another session because I feel there are a lot of topics we can talk about. But thanks for this great experience of having you online here today with us, Mark.
Yeah, anytime, Anthony. You know, the great thing about blues guitar playing is they actually use lots of different types of rhythm guitar elements all in the same genre, which doesn't happen too often in other guitar-based genres. So I'm looking forward to coming back.
All right. Thanks, Mark. You're a great guy. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you,
See
Anthony.
you.